So I decided to do my video on Chapter 7. Chapter 7 talks about how in Waco, Texas, there was a statewide coalition of bikers, like motorcyclists, and this gathering also raised the possibility of a renewal of a turf war between two gangs, which were called the Bandidos and the Cossacks. The Bandidos, who are based in Houston, claimed that Texas was their turf, and the Cossacks disputed that claim. Police were positioned, so it was at a restaurant that this was kind of occurring at, and police were positioned around the parking lot of it. And no trouble was happening until a bandito rolled over the foot of a Cossack when disputing a parking spot, which led them fighting and throwing punches, and eventually produced knives, chains, and eventually guns. When that happened, police fired into the crowd, and there ended up with 9 people dead, 20 wounded, and 177 bikers were arrested. When this happened, a lot of the local Waco, Texas news outlets were pressured to report big information before all of the big news outlets. And Janet Wheeler, which is not her real name, was trying to figure out the identities, while most of Waco News was trying to figure out if the bikers were local or not. So the police weren't releasing the names yet because the next of kin hadn't been notified, and ended up 2 days after, one station reported the names, which they got from preliminary autopsy reports that were published earlier. And the police still wouldn't release the names, and Janet's news station ended up reporting the names as well because they figured the damage had been done with the first one. That somebody else had already reported the names, so they should too, and that kind of assumes that the next of kin might have seen that, which they might not have, so it's kind of still a little bit unethical to do that. She finds out that Janet Wheeler figured out that one was a bandito, 7 of the victims were Cossacks, and one was not affiliated with either gang. Whenever they figured that out, her boss asked her to message the wife of one of the deceased to try and get some information from her, some sound from her, and that was during a time when these gangs were threatening law enforcement, so he was kind of placing her in danger, which is a little unethical as well. Another Waco news outlet waited to release the names until the police did so, and ended up being praised for it. So it was a good idea not to. She wished that whenever this happened, there was more discussion on whether they should publish the names or not. They didn't really get much of a choice, and nobody talked about the pros and cons of doing so. And she was disappointed that none of the newsroom or leaders found there was nothing wrong with it. And she kind of came to the conclusion that when big information needs to be released, or they want to release big information, ethics kind of goes out the window. So I think reading this, it made me almost a little bit more ethical, because I think that, as I've stated in my previous kind of videos, that I think I would have spoken out. She was disappointed that her newsroom and leaders found nothing wrong with it, but they didn't talk about her saying anything. I feel like if she would have said something, maybe somebody else would voice concerns as well. It's like a domino effect. When somebody else says something, others tend to speak up about their concerns as well. And so I think that she should have just maybe said something, maybe not, accuse anybody of anything, just saying, hey guys, do we really think this is ethical or not? And maybe somebody else would have spoken up about how they felt as well.